All right, everybody. In this chapter, we're going to be focusing on interpersonal communication and close relationships. And as always, be sure that you are reading the full chapter in detail. I'm not going to be covering every single thing from the chapter in this book. I'll be throwing a couple of my own things in there as well. But I really am just pulling out and highlighting the main things from this chapter. So, again, just make sure you're reading in full detail so you don't lose any points on any kind of quiz or exam. So this chapter first, what we're going to focus on is why social relationships matter. And basically, we form social relationships because we need to belong. We need social bonds that are both interactive and emotionally close. We develop and maintain many important social relationships online in a variety of settings. But basically, at the gist of it, it's part of us needing to feel like we belong to some kind of group, or that we matter to somebody, or that we're important to other people, or that we make an impact. We need, as humans, we just have this natural desire to interact and feel emotionally close to other people. Now, some of us are much more introverted than others. Some of us are much more willing to go out and make a lot of friendships and build a lot of relationships. Whereas others of us might not be so outgoing and may not go out and talk with as many people, or not really be the life of the party, so to speak. But one way or another, all of us, whether it's just one friend or 70, we have a desire as humans to interact and be emotionally close with individuals, and we form these relationships in a variety of contexts, whether that's at work or at school, or on the sports teams we belong to, or even on online contexts. We have a desire to do this, and this takes place in a variety of situations and contexts. Also, social relationships bring a lot of rewards. Again, we have emotional rewards. We experience support from other people, and that feels good. Relationships bring us a lot of happiness, and it feels good when we're able to support other people and make other people feel happy. That has an internal reward to it. There's also material rewards. I mean, sometimes in our relationships, especially in romantic relationships, we split living expenses. So money becomes important. Food, shelter, all those kinds of things are actual material rewards that come with any type of social relationship. There's health rewards. Being in relationships help us relax. Friends look out for each other's safety and well-being. People look out for us and care for us and give us the feedback that we need in order to live a healthy life. So there's a lot of reasons why they bring us rewards. There's emotional, material, and health rewards are kind of the three main areas in which we can think of how social relationships bring us rewards. Social relationships carry costs, though. So we just focused on the rewards, but there are some costs as well as benefits associated with relationships. First off, time. They take a lot of time, and it takes our investment both with time and our emotions in order to have healthy, stable social relationships. So these are viewed as costs because we have to spend this. We have to spend our time. We have to spend our emotional investments in our relationships. There are also material costs, like we just talked about, and there's also physical investments as well. We physically have to be present. We physically have to put our energy into our social relationships. And there's a few different other things in terms of the nature of personal relationships. Close relationships require commitment. It's not really a relationship unless, whether it's romantic or a friendship. Close relationships really do require a type of commitment and loyalty to one another. You are committed to the needs of the other person and vice versa, and you need to feel that sense of commitment for it to be a personal relationship. Close relationships also foster interdependence. We begin to rely on one another in our personal relationships. We need each other for certain things. We depend on one another to share information with one another, to vent towards one another, to support one another, to make each other laugh, to have fun with one another. We depend on each other to go out and do things. When it's a Friday night and you're wanting to go out with your friends, you rely on them in order for that group to kind of go out. Or when you're having a bad day, or when you just broke up with your boyfriend or girlfriend, or whatever that might be, we often rely on our close relationships and we depend on them. And so this interdependence is fostered through our personal relationships. We come to depend on one another. And close relationships require continuous investment. You must constantly put in an effort. You must constantly and continually strive to maintain that relationship and strive for it to grow and become more strong. It's not just, okay, we become friends now we can kind of quit and give up and everything's easy. You continually have to be investing your time and your energy and your resources into your personal relationships. And close relationships also spark what's called dialectical tensions, interpersonal dialectical tensions. And these basically, you can view them on a spectrum. So, for example, the first one, autonomy, could be all the way to the left, and connectedness could be on the right. In our close relationships, we always want a certain degree of autonomy, being meaning we want to be kind of our own person, our own individual that can make our own decisions and have our own free will, while at the same time we also want to be connected to the individuals in which we're close with and have personal relationships with. So we're constantly going back and forth and kind of playing this ball game on this spectrum of how much do I want to be my own individual versus how much do I want to be, connected and close to this person. We're always going back and forth with that. Openness and closeness is another one. We're always going back and forth between how much can I share, how many secrets can I tell, how open can I be, versus how much do I need to close to myself. So both within the relationship, but then also outside of the relationship. When you're within a relationship, there's a certain degree between you and the person you have a relationship with in terms of how open you are about your relationship and what you're willing to share with others outside of the relationship versus how closed off you are and how much you keep that information to yourself and decide not to share it with those outside of the relationship. And finally, predictability versus novelty within personal relationships. We want to have a sense of stability and predictability with our relationships. We don't want it to be where our friends and our romantic partners are constantly out of left field or just constantly, hard to predict or hard to understand or hard to interact with or hard to figure out. But at the same time, we don't necessarily always want things to be stagnant and routine and repetitive over and over again. So we do want a little bit of novelty as well. So with dialectical tensions, the important part to realize is it's never just one or the other. You're never just completely autonomous or connected. You're never just completely predictable or novel. It's the fact that you're constantly working on this tension. It's an interdependent tension that's always going back and forth, and you're always landing somewhere on the spectrum between these three things, and they're always constantly being negotiated and constantly kind of going back and forth on that spectrum. So next we'll talk about forming and maintaining social bonds a little bit. And really what we're going to go over is a few really important theories from this chapter. These are pretty crucial interpersonal communication theories. And the first is attraction theory, and this explains why individuals are drawn to others, what it is that we find in people, and why our friends become our friends, and why our romantic partners become our romantic partners. Basically, first, it's physical attraction. I mean, this is a kind of a no-brainer when it comes to romantic relationships. I mean, obviously, we tend to partner up with and get in romantic relationships with people that we find physically attractive. But this is with our friendships too. I mean, whether this is heterosexual or homosexual, whatever, or whether this is, men becoming friends with men, women becoming friends with women, men becoming friends with women, or women becoming friends with men. We're attracted to people when we become friends with people that we find physically attractive. Whether or not, again, if this is relational or romantic or not, we tend to become friends with people that we view as socially attractive or physically attractive. Not that we're sexually attracted to them, but people that we see and we're like, oh, okay, these people look attractive. These are people that other people like. This is my kind of person. I'm physically attracted to them. So again, obviously in this image, you can see this fella right here has a little physical attraction going on for the young lady walking by him. Social attraction is the next thing. We are attracted to people's personalities. I mean, if you are a very humorous, kind of goofy, class clown kind of person, you're going to kind of connect with those kind of people. If you're more of a straight shooter, a little bit more, serious more times than not, then you're going to be attracted to more of those types of people. So we're also interested and attracted to different types of personalities depending on which ones kind of match up with our own. And also task attraction. We're also attracted to people that get things done depending on how much we like getting things done, the types of things that we do, the type of activities we like to take place in. If individuals like the same hobbies as us and study the same things as us and have the same interests and do the same things as us, we're attracted to those type of people as well. There's particular characteristics that we tend to look at that make somebody attractive and basically influence what we perceive as attractive. First is probably the easiest one to figure out is appearance. There's just certain appearances that we're drawn to, and those are kind of what make us initiate contact in a lot of ways. Proximity, distance really matters. Research shows over and over again, and if you think about it in your own life, you become friends with people that you're closer to. I mean, the more time you spend with people at work, the more time you spend with people on sports teams you've had in the past, friends that you've maintained or create in classrooms, the people that you're closer with, you're just spending more time with, and that personal attraction and those social bonds are just going to grow based on the fact that you're just close to one another. Obviously, similarity makes a lot of sense. What we have in common with other people attracts us to them. If we have similar interests, hobbies, topics of conversation, so on and so forth, this is obviously going to make us attracted. And then finally, complementarity. This is where we find things in others that we don't necessarily have, but we really like about them. A lot of people in romantic relationships appreciate having partners that are good at things that they're not so that they can complement one another, and vice versa. You know, if you're kind of Mr. Fix It and she's not really that handy, maybe she likes being with you because you're able to do those things. Or vice versa. If you know, maybe she's really funny and you're kind of boring and not so much, but she kind of livens up the party when you two are out and things like that. We look for things in terms of complementarity too. What do others have that we lack that can kind of fulfill certain interests of our own? So then the next theory is uncertainty reduction theory, and this suggests that we get to know others to reduce our uncertainty about them. We find uncertainty unpleasant. Um, I guarantee all of you can relate to this. When you're not sure of something, or you're not sure of what an outcome is going to be, or how a decision is going to affect certain things, or if we like somebody, we want to get to know them more, we want to know them, we want to date them, we want to figure them out because we're attracted to them or whatever. We do not like uncertainty. We do whatever we can and we're motivated to reduce it. So we interact with people, we approach ourselves, we start texting, we start Snapchatting, whatever it might be. We want to get to know other people and reduce our uncertainty about them. And the less we are uncertain about somebody, the greater our liking is for that person. So the more we get to know somebody, the more information we can gather, the more that we can get a full picture of who somebody is, what their personality is all about, what they do, what their values are, what their opinions are. The more and more we gather this information, the more likely we are to like somebody. So if you're ever trying to form a relationship with somebody, whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship, and they're just not open about stuff, they're just not sharing information, and you kind of get the sense that they're not really reciprocating with like self-disclosures and things like that, we're not going to like them so much. We're kind of going to be like, all right, well, they're not really letting me reduce my uncertainty. I'm not really able to figure out a whole lot about this person, so that's kind of where I'm going to stop with this. Whereas when we really open up, or we can really get a lot of information from people that we're interested in, we tend to like them more because we have less uncertainty and we feel more comfortable with them. So predicted outcome value theory suggests a variety of things, but what it basically gets at is when we first talk with somebody, that's going to say a lot in terms of if we're going to invest in future communication. We try to predict whether continued communication with them will be worth the effort. So we first meet somebody and we basically subconsciously kind of assess, all right, is it worth my time talking with this person? Is it worth my time trying to interact with this person and getting to know them more? And it really says a lot in terms of what we want to do. If it is, we approach using behaviors to pursue a relationship will show interest. So if we really assess and say, you know what, talking with this person is worth it, getting to know this person might be worth it, we start doing behaviors and we start doing things to show them this. We might smile more, we might say hi more often, we might try to stretch out conversations, we might want to try to making suggestions like we should do this sometime, or we should go to this movie sometime, or I go to that same concert, maybe I'll see you there. We start doing these types of behaviors to show interest, whereas in turn we'll do avoidance behaviors if we pretty much determine I don't want any kind of future interaction with this person. We'll avoid them, we'll say hi less, we'll greet each other less, we'll reduce communication. When we're in conversations with them, we'll try to get out of them sooner than later. Social exchange theory goes a little bit further and says we seek relationships where the benefits outweigh the costs. We're looking to be in relationships where we get more out of it than what we're going to lose from it. Now, this doesn't mean we're trying to get more out of people than what we're willing to give them. That's not what it's about, but basically what we're looking for with this theory and what this theory is saying is you want to be friends with people and you want to have romantic relationships with people that are going to be more beneficial than they are going to be a burden. They're going to be more fun. You're going to get more rewards. You're going to have more intrinsic value from them than you are going to have any kind of negative associations. Equity theory is similar to social exchange theory, and what it basically says, we seek relationships in which our ratio of costs and benefits is the same as our partner. So again, we're looking for relationships where we get more reward according to social exchange theory than we do negative costs. But we also want relationships in which our partner is experiencing the same amount of reward and costs as we are. And there's situations where individuals can feel over benefited and under benefited in relationships. If you're over benefited, this is where you're receiving more from the relationship than you are giving. Your partner is doing more for you. They're supporting you more. They're being there emotionally for you. They might be buying you more gifts. They might be taking you more places. They might be doing more things for you than you are. And on the opposite of that, you're that person that's doing all these things. If you're under benefited, you're giving more to the relationship than you're receiving. You're the one that's always there for the other person. You're the one that doesn't forget anniversaries. You're the one that always buys gifts and presents and praises the other individual and supports them. And basically, when you're ever in a situation where you're in any kind of friendship or a romantic relationship, and I know all of you can relate to this, if one person's being over benefited, the other person's being under benefited, that is a recipe for absolute disaster in a relationship. So now we'll talk about the stages of relationship development and relationship dissolution. These are basically two stage models, and you can follow them step by step to really get a basic understanding of how relationships come to be and how relationships come to end. The first step of development is initiating, and this is literally first contact. This is the first time you've made eye contact or the first time you've met somebody, you shook hands with them, you've met them. This is the very first time we meet somebody. This is the first step. The next part is called experimenting, and this is where you start to learn more. You start to have conversations with them. You start to ask them questions. You start to creep on their Facebook. You start to learn things about one another. This is where you're sharing information. It's kind of like social penetration theory, where you're sharing information and getting to know one another. Intensifying is when you're officially friends. There's officially some sort of bond. You're obviously getting along. You do things together. You talk about things together, and you're starting to kind of see each other as a friendship. But the next step, integrating, that's where there's this deep commitment and the relationship has its own identity. We think about these stages a lot in romantic relationships. They apply to any relationship, really. But at the integrating stage, this is where you can sense that there's a connection between you two. The relationship itself has its own identity. You start to think of yourself as John, Sally starts to think of herself as Sally, but John and Sally are both also committed to their relationship, and they're starting to see that the relationship itself has its own identity. And then finally, bonding is when you make a public announcement. This is like going Facebook official in a romantic relationship. This is when you tell other people and share with other people, we are a couple, or we are best friends, or we are, a group of best friends. This is when there's a public announcement, you show it to other people. Relationship dissolution is kind of the opposite in certain ways. First, there's differentiating. This is where differences start to become annoying. All the things that you first thought were cute, all the way that she laughed and you used to think it was adorable now annoys the absolute hell out of you. The way that he used to, I don't know, always kiss you on the cheek, or he used to do something all the time that in the beginning you thought was absolutely adorable, but now it just pisses you off and you find it annoying. The second stage is circumscribing. This is where communication starts to decrease. This is where you're talking less, you're interacting less, you're not really doing as much together. You're just kind of going through the motions at this point. Avoiding is where there's actual emotional and physical distance created. You're not hanging out as much together. You're literally not talking as much together. You're not really providing emotional support. And you're starting to really just stay out of each other's way. And then finally, termination is where you're no longer Facebook official. This is where it's officially over. You're officially done. The relationship has officially come to an end. So again, be sure to read that chapter because there's a lot of information I didn't cover. I just wanted to go over some main points, but a lot of that text, there will definitely be some information in your exam. So be sure to read the rest of the chapter.